I welcome you to this conversation. It is thought that most of the African countries are happy to work with China in the field of trade due to the fact that the Chinese came to Africa to trade and to make money only, nothing else. This is the reason why they built roads, schools, clinics in African countries. And often they built houses where government agencies work, and even buildings where head of states work. Not only with support or aid, but also with the work given to them by countries for a certain benefit. While the US has put a lot of efforts into giving lessons on democracy, governance, and human rights to African countries, America has invested very little in infrastructure and other sustainable projects on the African continent. Since the attack of September 11, 2001 against the United States of America, the country has decided to put effort into cooperation with African countries in the field of security. This is how they put their military bases in different countries. In the last 2 years, the African Union Commission has expressed concern that many superpower countries in the world continue to increase the number of their military bases in African countries. At that time, there were 13 foreign military bases in African countries. The African Union has shown that it is difficult to trace arms entering or leaving those bases. In other words, it is difficult to control how arms enter or leave the African continent. The most worrying thing is that even though some of those countries send soldiers to the African continent, they come as part of peacekeeping mission, may it be UN mission, or because of the agreement between two countries, they even come to fight against terrorism. But there are others who come to establish military centers in African countries for their own benefits. There is a private intelligence consultants agency in the world called Pangea Risk. It says there are more than 21 US military bases in Africa, most of which are in the most insecure part of Africa and the Horn of Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. Donald Trump's administration has repeatedly said that it wants to reduce the US troops in Africa, but Joe Biden's administration has a plan to keep at least 6,000 troops on the African continent. Pangea Risk shows a serious problem, which is that the leader of African countries allow the army to come to their countries in a way that is against the constitution of those countries. They give the example of Cape Verde, a group of islands in the Atlantic Ocean to the west of the African continent, which is a good place to fight drug trafficking. The United States of America has troops in that country, and it is one of the African countries that does not often have riots because it has peace and security. The war on drugs aimed at preventing terrorists from receiving the funds they use to carry out attack on the US. In total, the United States has troops in more than 70 countries around the world. They have more than 800 military bases around the world. In Africa, the US military base known as Lemonia in Djibouti is located on the area of more than 360 square kilometers. It is used to be a large French military base, and after the French military left it, it was leased to the United States in 2001 or 2. President Obama signed an agreement with President Ismail Guerre of Djibouti to increase the rent of the facility for 20 more years for $163 billion. Those bases are located in the north of the Horn of Africa, a good place to fly to if you want to get to Yemen or Saudi Arabia in a quick way. It is a few minutes to cross the Gulf of Aden and reach Yemen, which borders Saudi Arabia, which also border Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Here are the US troops as of 2000, between 2,000 and 3,000 troops. This is the eastern tip of Africa at the gateway to countries where terrorists exist, but also where there is a lot of petroleum. The United States is not the only country with military base here. Djibouti is the first country in the world that has many foreign military bases, while it is also a safe country. In addition to America, in Djibouti there are British forces, French forces, Chinese forces, Saudi Arabia forces, and the Russian forces. Also, Japan's only overseas base is in Djibouti. There are people who think that if a world war between the world's most powerful countries is about to start, it can start in Djibouti, because that is where all the world's most powerful countries have their armies. The United States has an Air Force base in Kenya called Manda Bay. It was established in 2006 for the purpose of training the military of African countries that have relations or cooperation with America. America also has 2 military bases in Niger, Air Base 101 in Niamey and Air Base 2011 in Agadez. Bases that use drones. Those stations are responsible for using those drones to spy around Africa and the intelligence information America will share with its friends in Africa. US also has military base in Egypt. the multinational force and observer. It was established in 1979 when Egypt was in a conflict with Israel. The United States Army was responsible for monitoring whether the peace agreement signed by those countries is respected. The American military base here in Egypt also conducted research on disease caused by insects, and American soldiers and health experts work in that base. US has another base in Cameroon as well as other African countries. United States Secretary of State for Defense Lloyd Austin told Africans leader that China and Russia continue to occupy Africa hidden in a business partnership. He said that this used traps of solving problems, but that will threaten the security of countries if they have not yet started. Russia is continuing to sell cheap weapons to some countries and send terrorists there. That is to say, those people are bad. Let them and let us work with you because we are good. It is not often said, but the administration of President Biden openly said that they are worried about the presence of Russia and China in Africa, especially that they are worried about the amount of money China is giving to build infrastructure on the African continent. The United States state that China's loan and aid to African countries in building infrastructure is a trap that will slow Africa down economically. In 2022, the United States of America has given Africa $11 billion in charity work to lift people out of poverty, helping refugees and others in need. China's ambassador to the United States of America, Qin Gang, said that Africa should be a place for international cooperation instead of a continent where the world's superpower countries fight take place. Last year, U.S. trade in Africa dropped 5.3%. What equipment do you have made in America? If not the iPhone, which may also be assembled in China. Only this looks like it is going to change. Listen to this story. In the next 3 years, the government of the United States of America has planned to invest $50 billion in Africa in business activities. Before the year of 2025, they will have already invested $4 billion in training health workers in Africa. As of this year, the United States military is spending $8 billion and $400 million. They have 2,007,142 soldiers altogether. Those are ground force, air force, and submarine. US is the only country in the world that has 1,000 troop soldiers in foreign countries, with 1,000 military bases in different countries of the world. This allowed them to start military operation anywhere in the world at a moment's notice whenever they want. They have more than 6,300 war tanks of different types. All of that plus technology they have and the money they invest, which gives them the right to control anyone they want in the world at any time. In addition to the military support they give to countries around the world. Superpower countries put a lot of money in making dangerous weapons that can destroy infrastructures and kill people, while it is better to put them in other activities aimed at building and saving people. Thank you for listening to us. I'm Jack Stratton. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.